Welcome to the Farmer Supply Association Agriculture Report. I'm Randy Klopechka, agronomist with Farmer Supply Association. Well, farming season, planting season is officially here. We're taping on March the 16th, and yesterday, March 15th, I know there was some corn planted out east of Newport in the Balch area. So, we're officially into planting season and farming season, and we'll see what the weather does and where it takes us as far as how this planting season is going to go. But we're underway, and that's always the first step in anything. Today, I want to talk about. I want to eventually talk about rice weed control. First, I want to just kind of refer back to my last program. We talked a little bit about wheat weed control. We talked about wheat fertilization. We talked about burn down herbicide applications. And we've got quite a bit of that done. As you can see, the field behind me, this field has had gramoxone applied, I guess, 6 days ago. Gramoxone works fast, so you can see a lot of brown weeds out here. Most of the smaller weeds are going to have good control. The only problem will be we have quite a bit of ryegrass in this field. It will probably take another application. It was to the point in the season where we, close to rice planting, that we pretty much only had one choice, and that was to go with gramoxone. So again, we've got pretty good activity. We'll need another shot on the ryegrass, but overall this field has good activity from the burn down, and we're off to a pretty good start as far as getting ready to plant. On this program, again, my main topic is going to be rice weed control. I always say it's my most favorite topic, and it's my least favorite topic. It's my most favorite when guys overlap their residual herbicides, get them activated, and get great weed control. That always makes you feel good. It's my least favorite when they don't overlap the residual herbicides, they don't get activated, or for whatever reason they have a lot of post-emerge, a lot of grass come up, and you have to come up with a post-emerge recommendation to try to kill out that grass, and that's often very difficult because there's so many variables that affect that post-emerge application. So in that case, it's my least favorite topic, I guess you might say, to talk about. Getting into weed control, one of the things that we deal with more and more is resistance, and to that end, I've been sending off barnyard grass seed head samples every late summer, early fall to have checked to see if those seed heads are resistant to certain herbicides. They're tested by the University of Arkansas. Obviously, they're at an increased risk for resistance for the simple reason that, when I get them and get the seed heads, they've obviously escaped and they've had a failure of control. So, there's a good chance they probably will have resistance, but we just send them off and check them out and see what resistances they do have, and if in fact resistance was the issue. In most cases, it often is. In 2021, I sent off 6 barnyard grass samples. These are from Jackson County and Poinsett County from the Farmer Supply Association footprint. Out of those 6, all 6 of them were resistant to facet. All 6 were resistant to New Path. 5 had resistance to propanil. 2 had resistance to clincher, and 2 had resistance to regimen as well. So again, quite a bit of resistance issues there. I've been sending these samples off again for about 3 years from Farmer Supply customers, again in Poinsett, Jackson, and also in Cross counties. And out of those 21 samples, 15 of those 21 were tested as resistant to propanil, 15 were resistant to facet, 12 were resistant to New Path, 5 resistant to clincher, and 2 resistant to regimen. So you can see we have a lot of resistance to those post-emerge herbicides that we often have used for barnyard grass control. Luckily, we have had no resistance to command. Out of those 21 samples, 0 had any resistance to command. There is a little command resistance scattered around the state. It's not widespread. It's been kind of localized, but again, out of our 21, we had none. And although glyphosate's not a rice herbicide as such, they are tested for glyphosate as well, and none of them were totally resistant to glyphosate. In fact, only one of the 21 had a little bit of resistance. It was they got like 60% control in that sample. So we're still looking good with our pre-emergence herbicides like Command, Prowl, and Bolero, and also Roundup, although some of our farmers and sometimes what we see in the field, we're a little concerned about our control with glyphosate. But again, these tests show that no resistance to glyphosate at this time in these. So where do we go from here? Well, barnyard grass, most people consider barnyard grass to be their #1 weed in rice. I mean, you might find some people that argue about flat sedge, maybe, red rice obviously as well. But overall, in the grand scheme of things, barnyard grass is #1. And just like in weed control in soybeans and some other crops, the keys are to start clean. When you plant that crop and before that rice crop emerges, you need to make sure clean. Get the residuals out there, and if you need to make a Roundup application before that rice emerges to get anything that might be out there, do that, because if you don't do that, you're going to be behind the 8 ball to start all the way through the year. There's, again, when we're talking about the need for pre-emergence herbicides, there's several issues with post-emergence herbicides, and that's why we're trying to avoid the use of them as much as we can. One is the resistance issue that I just talked about. 2, application issues. It might be the weather. It's hard to get herbicides applied when it's windy, when it's cold, when there's adjoining crops that are susceptible to that particular herbicide. Again, those are all issues, and there are other issues as well that make post-emerge barnyard grass control very difficult. So that's why we want to try to keep that grass from ever coming up. If you look at pre-emerge herbicides, there's really only one problem, and that's if they don't get activated. If they don't get a timely rain to activate them, then they can fail too. But that's really the only issue. If you get a rain to activate them, they're usually going to be very effective. Looking at our pre-herbicides, there's really 4 main ones that we talk about, and that's not counting, of course, the Newport and the Clearfield system, and also the Preface and the full page system. But normally we're looking at Command, Facet, Prowl, and Bolero as the 4 main herbicides that we're talking about in the pre-emerge spectrum there. There are a couple of premixes that are also available. Obey is a premix of Facet and Command, and Rice 1 is a premix of Command and Prowl. Both of these are excellent choices. They're often more economical than applying both of those herbicides by themselves. So keep in mind Obey and Rice 1 when you're looking for your, making those herbicide choices for your pre-emerge use in rice. When you put that first one out, we like to put it out at planting. Of course, you can put Command and Facet out right at planting. Prowl and Bolero, you've got to wait till that rice seed imbibes the water for germination before you can apply those. But when you apply that first one, and I'm ready to make an overlap normally in about 2 to 3 weeks after that first application. After that first one is activated, we want another one activated in 2 to 3 weeks. So normally in about 10 days or so after that first one is activated, I'm watching weather forecasts real thoroughly. I'm looking for the next good chance of rain that will activate that next herbicide application. So again, I'm starting looking at about 10 days. And I want to have that next pre-emerge activated within about 3 weeks, if at all possible at the most, because that's about how long these applications will last. Sometimes when it's colder, they'll last longer. When it's hotter, they won't last as long. But on average, I like to see something, again, activated over the top of that one in about 3 weeks. So that's kind of where we're at on that. Just kind of an example program that I like, and this is not set in stone. There's any kind of combination you want to of these pre's that you can use, but I kind of like to start with a Command by itself or a Command Sharpen. The Sharpen has some activity on annual sedges, so it can be very effective on the annual sedges, which are becoming more and more of a problem. So I like to go either a Command Sharpen if I have the annual sedges, or a Command Facet. Command Facet's very popular, but I personally like to save my Facet for a later application. So I normally don't go that one, but a lot of people do, and they're successful, and I don't want to take you away from that one because I think it's a very good one. I just personally like to save that Facet for a little bit for a second or third application. Often that first overlap will be something like a Prowl Bolero. I mean, there's a bunch of options you can use, but I kind of like Prowl and Bolero. There's no resistances to either one of those, so that I like that one for an overlap application. Bolero will give you more annual sedge control as well, which again is becoming more of a problem. So you're going to get some out of that Sharpen, and then Bolero is going to give you more. So that's again a great option to give you more annual sedge residual activity. If you still need more control after that one, and I like to see a third one if you need it, and often that one will, in my opinion, will be something like a Command, more Command. You can use up to 34 ounces of Command per season, so I like to see something like a Command and maybe put my Facet in that application. Facet's going to be very good for your black-seeded weeds like your indigo, your coffee bean, your morning glory. So, in my opinion, I like to see that one in that second or third application. But again, there's a lot of ways, a lot of combinations you can do these. I just think you need to be sure you're overlapping and getting them out there and using them. And everybody's going to say, well, that's a pretty expensive program if you do all three of those. Well, yeah, it is, but it's not as expensive as if you fail with your pre's and you have to get out there and try these post-emerge applications, because they're often going to be more expensive. And again, there's that crapshoot with all these variables of whether they're going to work or not. So I think it's cheaper to ever keep the grass from coming up. And if you can do that, you'll be successful. A couple of more things. Again, we talked about the Sharpen. There's also a pre-emerge herbicide called League that is also, you can mix with Command if you want to. It's good on coffee bean, indigo, and also the annual sedges. I mean, not the annual sedges, but yellow nut sedge. Again, yellow nut sedge, coffee bean, and indigo is where you see the good activity from the League. So, but if you do use League, remember soybeans are very sensitive to it, so don't get it on a field that's going to be planted in soybeans or has soybeans in it. Or if the field has a very high pH, like over 8, 8.5 or more in that area, you can have carryover issues with it as well. So that's just another option if you have that scenario there. So again, that's where we're at. Planting season is underway, and next month we'll probably be showing you some crops emerging and talk about the crop season as it's going at that time. So this has been Randy Kopechka with your Farmers Supply Association Agri Report.